there we go. Just to get the vibe going a little bit. Yeah.
All right, that's actually David's one. I would have preferred Curtis Mayfield, but
Should be able.
I am Blake Allen. I'm with Allen Realty out of Colorado Springs, Colorado. I've been a member of this group for about a dozen years or so. I'm on the board of directors. Been doing this a long time. Exchanging is the primary focus of my business. Like most exchanges, however, of course, that doesn't mean most of my transactions are exchanges. I still, like everybody else, most of our transactions end up being regular deals. The discussion today is about one particular formula. We have a lot of real estate formulas that we use in exchangers. Counseling and formulas are the key to exchanging. We're going to focus the entire time here on one formula, okay, for 2 or 3 hours. People say, oh my God, how bad can this be? We're going to spend 2 or 3 hours on one formula. The point isn't just this one formula. The point is what this formula can bring around for people. So first of all, the formula itself, the 1031 paper, is a very powerful tool in and of itself. I think I'll take my jacket off because it's warm here. 1031 paper I found is a very powerful tool. You don't need to use it all the time, but it is that's the main reason for discussing it. It does have direct applications for regular, more traditional commercial brokerages, the CCIM model, all the people who are out there doing, regular practitioners doing the bulk, 90+% of their transactions, the buy-sell transactions. Most of them end up being 1031s. This is very relevant for the regular practitioners, and that's part of why I'm doing this. I want to get people educated, the CCIMs and the rest of the world, about our exchanger culture, how we work and do these win-win transactions. I'd like it if the normal real estate community, it just occurred to me, I can take this thing off, can't I?
Yeah, you're good.
It occurred to me the normal real estate community is not very familiar. You guys are actually supposed to be wearing it unless you're eating, so be actively eating, otherwise properly socially distanced as I am from all of you. So, this formula and the way we do it works best in the context of the exchange meetings. My idea is to try to get the rest of the world to understand what we do in these groups and in these rooms and help the CCIMs and the commercial brokers out there and regular, agents all across the board understand the magic and the power of this room and what we do. Okay, so that's part of the reason that I'm going through this formula and part of why we're reaching out with it. We've created a YouTube channel, 1031 Paper YouTube channel, with a lot of videos to educate people. So this is a tool that we're using. We have a big toolbox. This is just one of them. Very powerful, multi-tool kind of tool, but it's just one of them. And I want to go over it, and also in the course of this discussion, talk about exchanging culture and educate people about what we do. This group, fortunately, already knows a lot of the point of the win-win situations, the exchanges. We have a few new people here, but generally we know this. What I want is every one of you in the room and all the folks out there on Zoom, okay, by the time you're done in this class, you will represent the majority of the world's experts on 1031 paper, okay, because they don't exist. You're looking at the one. Okay, so once you guys have done this for a couple hours, you're going to know as much as anybody else in the world about it, and you'll have access to me. We can get it done. It's nothing new at all. People have been doing this a long time. I'll go through that. But to start with, I thought I'd just go through a little exercise for fun that normally we would do by handing things to people. Okay, in the pandemic world, we can't actually hand things to people. So I'm going to be making up the people and going through the exercise, okay? I'm just going to show you what happens when you use these promissory notes that are just a promise and IOU from Uncle Sam, how we can make this work. I realized this morning that, oh my goodness, I've come here to the meeting, I don't have a laser pointer, right? Shit, I didn't bring a laser pointer, I need a laser pointer. Well, somebody here, you don't need to help me, Brian. Someone here has a laser pointer, all right? That person's Brian, and he's right here with his laser pointer, all right? Okay? He's got a laser pointer I need. So what I want is that anybody's got some items they want to trade here, they're willing to trade. I said, shit, Brian, I got a $20 bill in my pocket. It doesn't do any good. I mean, I'm pointing at this thing. All I want And I guess I might be able to get it, I can get it to point, but it's not very good at pointing. I mean, I guess I could fold it and make it better at pointing, but it's not really designed for that. And what I'd rather have is that laser pointer, because that actually does what I want to do. So I said, here, Brian, I got the laser pointer, and it turned out like Brian's like, you fool, where's your mask? She ain't got any mask, okay? I'm pretending you don't have a mask.
Yeah.
This guy came in the room, he didn't have a mask. His ass can get thrown out if he doesn't get a mask, right? He had a laser pointer, now he's got a $20 bill. Guess what? Now he's got a mask. He paid $20 for a mask, right? But he's got a mask, that's what he brought. He brought a laser pointer, now he's got a mask, okay? The person who gave Brian that mask was like, oh my God, I'm sitting next to this son of a gun without a mask, and I just handed him a mask, and I just took a $20 bill from him? She said, hell, I need some hand sanitizer. Right? So she said, shit, okay, here's your hand sanitizer, okay? Some really organized person showed up here. Someone organized, like Erica must have been the one organized. She brought her hand sanitizer. She said, yeah, I got your hand sanitizer. I don't really need the $20 bill so much. What I really wanted, Blake, is after the class and you totally confused me, I'd like to give you that $20 to spend half an hour explaining what you told me. I said, well, shit, I do consulting for a living. I'd be thrilled to spend a half an hour hanging out with Erica at lunch and teach her about real estate. And guess what I just did? So I came here with nothing but my skills in my head. I got myself a laser pointer. Okay? Guy with a laser pointer got a mask. Guy with a mask got sanitizer. Person with sanitizer got professional, advice or whatever you want to say. Did we need this? Did we need this $20 bill at all to do this? No. But I ended up with a $20 bill back. This is a catalyst. We just did 4 exchanges with a catalyst of cash that was not consumed in the process, okay? I want you just to get this idea when we get back to the end, you're like, oh shit. That's what we do in real estate all the time. So, I guess what I should have said first and I forgot, we actually live on planet 1031, so you can't keep the $20 bills. It still worked with this example because everybody had a need. We live in this crazy planet with exchanging, so if we don't want to pay taxes, we can't take money. We have to take real estate, okay? If we made that requirement here, it would work just fine. The cash is a catalyst, serves no purpose whatsoever other than trust, okay? So it's to bridge a trust gap, to bridge the gap in trust. That I'm not going to get the sanitizer just on a whim unless we set the $20 bill. If we can all work together as comrades or however you want to call it, if we all are part of the same crew, we shouldn't need the $20 bill in order to exchange benefits. Because what we're really talking about here is the benefits. I needed a laser pointer. Brian needed a mask. Somebody needed their hands cleaned. Someone needed help with a real estate transaction. They're all benefits that they sought and benefits that got delivered without need for cash, just with humans interacting together and providing benefits to one another. So there's a little intro that I came up with, in the morning to introduce you guys to it. So good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. All right. Thank you. What do I mean when I say 1031 paper? Okay, this has led to a little bit of confusion. 1031 paper, I'll go through the whole process, is really taking a note, a seller carrying a note, and passing it through the 1031 process. A guy named Sturgis Dornbush, that's actually a person's name, a guy from South Dakota whose parents named him Sturgis, did this a long time before the Starker decision. So the Starker decision in the 80s is what made the deferred 1031 exchange. 1031 exchanges have been around for 100 years. It's just the deferred part is what we talk about as a 1031 exchange. Before we had that, you had to actually change them simultaneously, okay? This is a transactional formula. This is a formula for transacting business. It's not suddenly make you billions of dollars. It's not going to do anything except help you make it through a transaction. So it's an old formula, like I said, used intentionally. So one thing I'd like you to think about as we go through this, and it would be much better if we were in person to do it, but this $20 bill, right, went this direction, okay? It went clockwise on my table, the $20 bill did. The property, the objects, went counterclockwise on my table. You noticed as we switched them over. That is what Sturgis Dornbush would do with the SEC guys way back in the day. He would sit at a table, we'd all be around the table. Deeds would go one way, deeds of trusts would go the other way, and then they'd all close at the same time. We're going to get you to that point where you see what that would happen in a simultaneous exchange. We do it deferred because we can, but you could do it simultaneously. Okay, so this is an old formula used intentionally. It is the old traditional writing an IOU on a bar napkin and giving it to somebody. It's an IOU for a piece of real estate, okay? The more, longer one is a seller carry note or contract for deed, mortgage, 30-year lease, leasehold, or anything whatsoever, okay? 1031 paper is anything passed through the 1031 process resulting in a 1031 tax deferred exchange. It can be this little Tuscany pad if we all agreed that the words on this were the same as this Federal Reserve words. It would work just fine. It could be an IOU on a bar napkin, so as long as everyone honors its value. And only the final seller, as we go through this process, will keep the paper if they choose not to do a 1031, okay? And they do an installment sale. Alrighty? I wonder how many people are following. Just give me some questions if you guys have already as far as what the hell are you talking about. Who's completely confused and does not know what I'm talking about? Thanks for being honest. Okay, we're going to start with, we're going to go through this cartoon here. I'd like it, for those of you who know me, to appreciate it. I actually made a picture, had my assistant made a picture, a cartoon. People really want the visual, and as Gary Vandenberg pointed out from the wonderful Columbia University study, yes, you learned you can retain 70% if I give you a picture. This is the first little picture of 1031 paper, how it works, okay? I'm just going to go over this with you. You've got a person with a house that wants to sell their house because they want to buy a fourplex. They've got a $100,000 house, let's say here, and they want to buy a $400,000 fourplex, all right? This person who owns this property, and I think this thing's totally dead, it doesn't work. Okay, so that was a really valuable, I really did well for my $20.
But you got your $20 back.
I got my $20 back, so it's okay. Oh, there it goes, okay. So anyhow, buyer A wants to buy property 2 there, okay? If I don't have, sorry, buyer B becomes, seller 1 becomes buyer B, wants to buy property 2. We've got a guy who comes along, and we've got a $100,000 house, and he says, I'll give you a $25,000 RV, and I want you to carry $75,000 on this property. Or make it easier, we'll just use Federal Reserve notes and say, hey, a guy's got $25,000 cash he's going to put down, and he wants him to carry $75,000 on that house. And the seller says, I really like you, and I really like your 25 down. I don't like the fact that you can't get a new loan. And so traditionally they'd say, hey, go find somebody to lend you the money. And they tell him to go away, and they wait for another buyer. In this case, he says, no, I'm going to do a 1031 with your money. Okay, I need to go give it to a qualified and buy another one. So I'll go ahead and accept your offer, subject to finding something else in lieu of what you're giving me. Okay, meaning I don't want your seller carry note. I like your 25 grand cash. I don't really want it though. I want the $400,000 fourplex. I'm only going to do this deal if it gets me there. So you go to the guy with the $400,000 fourplex. You say, hey man, if I go get you $300,000 from the new loan, that's that bottom part there. If I get you $300,000 from a new loan, and it could be a seller carry, but if I get you $300,000 from a new loan, and I give you $75,000 of first position paper on a house, and I give you the 25 grand that the guy gave me, so you get 325,000 in cash, and you're gonna have a $75,000 note. Will you take that? In this first example, because we're at the beginning of the thing, we say, yeah, sure. He says he'll take it. We can close this deal, okay? He walks away from the table with his cash and a $75,000 note. So he wasn't, here's a guy who didn't, he's down and out. He doesn't want a new property. He's gonna pay taxes on the $325,000 that he received, and he's gonna pay an installment sale on his $75,000 note. It'll have an interest rate, and then it'll have a balloon sometime in the future, or not, or may go out for 30 years and amortize. But this is the set of benefits that the seller got, okay? If he's willing to take it, it works fine. We'll go through and show you how he doesn't have to take it either. Just like they didn't have to keep the $20 bill, he doesn't really have to take it either. But this is the basic idea, okay? You take somebody with any kind of down payment, it could be a cat, you could have a really nice pretty cat he puts down, and the rest of it's the seller carry, and as long as the seller will take it, we're gonna get to the next step, okay? What questions does this elicit out of the audience when we look at this? What comes to mind? Any questions?
Well, the first one, a lot of paper has balloons in it. Does little balloons affect this at all?
A lot of paper has balloons in it. Will it affect this at all? Is what Hal asked. Absolutely. The person who, the seller, is going to be the recipient of that balloon when it comes due.
Right.
So it's a benefit.
But the 1031 aspect still moves forward as long as it's a...
Okay. So the 1031 aspect in this example already happened. So the $25,000 cash and the seller carry note from seller one went to his qualified intermediary. So the qualified intermediary took the note and the cash. Then we went to the next closing because we had to wait on the new loan.
Sure.
And we closed the next closing with putting that money down in there. This here is the 1031 that's completed.
Okay.
You're talking about the next guy. Yeah, the next guy's going to just hang on to it, and he's going to get paid off when the thing pays off. And it could be a 30-year straight amortizing note, for instance. It could be anything. It could be the title to a pickup truck. Okay, so it's not, so the note is not like-timed, okay? Because it's a note, which really means it's a delivery of payments, your CPA may agree that that's an installment sale. Again, I have to say from the beginning, I'm not a tax expert, I'm not an attorney, I'm not an enrolled agent, any of that. I am just a guy who has a real estate license who's found that he's been able to do these things and without dire consequence. All right, so let's start with the definition for those of you who like definitions. I mentioned that some of you are out there. 1031 paper is when an agreement between two parties secured by and transferring title to real estate is given to a qualified intermediary who then gives it to another owner of real estate, completing a 1031 exchange. Makes a pretty complicated long sentence, but it was that picture that we just did before. If you want to go back to the picture there, we've got so an agreement between two parties here, the contract, transferring title to the real estate. Well, there's a contract there, there's a contract here. It's given to a qualified intermediary who then delivers it, and we have a 1031 exchange, all right? Next slide. So the result is that an owner of one property can sell that property to a third party and use whatever proceeds for the purchase of a replacement property while deferring taxation. That's where the syntax of your sentence, forgive me, requires an emphasis on whatever. The whatever proceeds literally can be two cats and a dog, it can be an RV, it can be money, it can be whatever it is. As long as the people leave title to real estate and then take title to real estate and don't touch any of that stuff in between. That's why you have the qualified intermediary from the start of the decision. So a traditional 1031 does this with cash, okay? Generally, everything I'm talking about you just do with cash. Okay, the guy with the first property just buy with a new loan. The guy go give that money to his qualified intermediary. He'd go get the new property, he'd replace the debt and bring the cash. It'd all be done with cash. This is the same, it's just the notes aren't Federal Reserve notes. The currency is different, okay?
Question over here.
Yes, sir.
The title to the cats and the beneficiary of the note has to be made out to the intermediary.
Right. So yeah, so who's going to take titles of ownership to the cats or the note, the name on the note, will be your qualified intermediary. So when the first buyer is buying that property and the seller's selling it, when he writes up that note and deed of trust, he doesn't write it to Bob Jones, he writes it to Bob Jones as qualified intermediary, okay? In this account for the benefit of, they've got a little language they give you to put, that's the title holder, okay? That's who you're giving it to. You're not keeping it yourself, you're not giving it to your cousin or your brother or your mom or your son, okay? Very few people disqualified from doing it, anyone else you can. Misconceptions about 1031 paper, okay? This is what I run into a lot. I get people, they've already closed their deal, and they say, yeah, I'd just like to go ahead and trade for some of that 1031 paper you got. Yeah, it doesn't work, okay? When you take paper from real estate, this is the misconception. This statement is wrong, okay? Wrong statement I'm gonna make here. When you take paper for real estate, you can divert taxes without taking other real estate, somehow bypassing the like-kind requirement. That is not true, okay? If you keep the note, you did an installment sale, or you took a not like-kind property. Has to go to your qualified intermediary. Seller must relinquish real property held for investment and replace it with other real property held for investment following the rules of section 1031, okay? You can't trade it for something you're gonna use, okay? You gotta have the same, it's gotta be held for investment. It can be a piece of land, it can be an apartment complex, it can even be that pretty condo, but you can't stay there more than 14 days out of the year unless you're working on it, okay? Because there are rules. You can't just suddenly defer taxes and then let it pay for your pretty home that you live in with your lovely new wife. That's not the way it works, okay? It has to be held for investment, and that's because we're reinvesting in our country, okay? The reason that our government allows this is because we are reinvesting in our country and supporting our fellow Americans as we go through each step of this process. The difference here about 1031 paper, and the only difference with 1031 paper, is that we're depositing a different type of currency with our qualified intermediary. We're not giving Federal Reserve notes, or really, they're not even notes anymore. It's just a little credit number on your bank account with a international conglomerate that agrees you have that much money. Like if I go to JP Morgan and they say I've got $100,000 in the bank, damn, I got $100,000 in the bank. I hope tomorrow they don't decide that I don't have $100,000 in the bank, because I don't know what the heck any of us are going to do. But that's a whole other discussion. But anyhow, the currency that we're giving is numbers saying that there's now this many, and the Star Trek thing is quatloos. We got that many quatloos in our account. If anybody remembers quatloos, there you go. That's an obscure one. Okay, the next slide is, everybody in this room should know this. This is also to help with the investors and everybody else out there. But if you don't, you want to take a real good 1031 class. We have a lot of good qualified intermediaries out there. One of them, Bill Exeter, is a sponsor of our group, and he's got a lot of classes. If you just go to exeter.com, you'll see this. So what we have, we've all seen this before. We got a property, it's got a certain amount of equity, may or may not have debt. We're going to sell it. We're going to give the money to the qualified intermediary. We have 45 days to identify and 180 days to close. Totally arbitrary and capricious, in my opinion. But then we have to buy something bigger with more debt. And that thing there on the right is a little bigger than the thing on the left, okay? So you have to go up in value and you have to go up in debt, even if it's just a tiny little bit. That's what you gotta do. Do you have to 100%? No, if you don't, you just pay a little taxes on the boot. It's not like the world suddenly comes screaming to a halt because you bought something $100,000 less than what you relinquished. You're just gonna have to pay taxes on the 100, plus probably more, just depending on where the math works. Alrighty, so that's enough of that. Any questions on basic 1031? Yes, Sherry.
That note could be exchanged for a fractional ownership or a percentage of stock that
Right.
owns the real estate.
Right, so
It could go into a syndication.
right, Sherry was saying yes, that can be traded for shares of stock, right, that they qualify as real estate and into tenants and common corporations. There's different ways that it can be used. Absolutely, it can go into anything, it can go into a DST. Okay, so if the DST will take the paper, you can buy paper with the DST with the paper. Or, this with the cash, any of those things can be done. All righty?
Link,
Yes,
Steve Small here.
somebody,
This formula, this strategy actually could apply to any personal property, not just paper. as long as you can move through the steps according to the rules and end up where you want to land, correct?
Absolutely. So Rich Michelson's generously donated hand sanitizer could be the thing that I give to the qualified intermediary, so long as the person with my replacement property would agree to take Rich's thing of hand sanitizer in exchange for their property. Yes, absolutely. Anything can be used. There's a little caveat, it probably has to have the value, just unless we're doing a real bridge of trust, okay? If we know each other and trust each other, you know, with our lives, then we don't need this thing to have any value. But, you know, in real estate, suddenly you notice your friends, like when there's suddenly 100,000 between you and a friend, you know, are they a friend anymore? Sometimes they're not. So that's what I'm saying. So the reason the currency, the note, just like the cash, should have that value, or it becomes a little silly. So it
So
absolutely.
this could work with a boat, an RV, even a leasehold interest, even if the leasehold interest didn't itself stand alone qualify for a 1031 treatment.
Right. So it literally can be anything whatsoever. So a classic thing people would think of is a sack full of gems. I see over there Stewart's hat. There's a perfect example. You like Vince Hudson's hat, right? Or Stewart's hat. That hat to Stewart has enough value that he'd give you a piece of real estate for it, okay? Just because of its inherent value to him, right? There's a perfect example I use of something that does not have monetary value, but that would get somebody back, like their horse, okay? Somebody's horse. They only want that horse. It's their horse, okay? That kind of thing. Little sidetracking. Okay, next page. This is one of my favorite things I always tell people. Remember, cash is promissory notes. Chuck even has a little video that says cash is promissory notes, right? I'm proud of that one. Yeah, so yeah, cash is promissory notes from the Federal Reserve. IOUs from Uncle Sam is fiat currency backed by the U.S. government. It used to be backed by gold. If you and I go to Fort Knox with our certificates and we ask for our gold, we are not going to get it because it doesn't exist anymore. It is all backed by our mutual agreement that we believe that Uncle Sam is a worthy person, a worthy borrower, and we let him borrow our property because we're pretty sure we're going to get paid for it. Anything we can do with cash, we can do with promissory notes, okay? They are promissory notes, okay? So I can't say that enough. Anything you've ever done in your life with cash, you can do with a promissory note. In fact, as a joke, some of these little guys probably do. You go ahead and try, you go write your IOU on a bar napkin down there, and you might be able to get a drink for it. If you can talk your story well enough, you might be able to get yourself a drink for it. The guarantor on the promissory notes does not have to be Uncle Sam. In fact, none of us have ever met this character. We just really believe in him. These are just little differences. Real estate notes usually pay interest. Okay, they don't always, they don't have to, but they usually do. And if they don't, the government will charge you imputed interest because they said nobody would lend money without interest, except them. Right? But real estate notes usually pay interest. And the thing I always like to say, cash is a depreciating asset. We all know, based on experience, and I can run the math for people, the people who've been in the business over 50 years realize that the rent on a 2-bedroom apartment 50 years from now will be $250,000 a month, okay? We know it. It's a fact. Start doing the math. Look what's happened in the last 50 years on property you own. That's the way it's going to be. A depreciating asset. We all fight over it. I do not know why. I'm going to step back a little bit into what we do, okay, in the equity marketing world. So that's where this becomes relevant. You guys already know the tool, okay? You got the tool sitting in the box. Okay, what does it mean? How do we use this? What do we do with it? All right? So, equity marketing, what we do in this exchange group is buying what one wants with what one has, okay? Exchanging, just like we did here, is trading one set of benefits for another set of benefits. A mask for hand sanitizer, okay? Different sets of benefits. A fundamental principle of all real estate: no deal will close unless each party perceives themselves to be better off after closing than they were before. Each party perceives themselves to be better off, okay? We're all different. That's very important, because as long as no one's going to close, if they think, God, why did I do that? I'm much better off than I was before, they're just not going to close. So don't forget that, okay? We don't live in isolation. The other side is important. You go on to the next slide. The benefits of real estate. This is all old hat for all of you, but it will help your investors. And another thing, so this course and what you'll learn in here, I intend for this to be a counseling tool for all of you to use with your clients. Okay, that's the reason I'm going through all of this, is to help all of your business thrive the way mine has doing these kind of things. Income is the cash coming in. Appreciation, it sells for more dollars in the future. Depreciation, we can deduct the improvements over time. Amortization has somebody else paying off our property for us. But the most important part, and I've been taught by all these exchangers, cash is not a benefit, okay? Just like we saw, cash can buy benefits. It's not even benefits, it's a fairly good pointer, okay? It doesn't do much for you, but it can go buy you stuff. Like you can take it down to the bar, and that fool will trade you for whiskey, okay? Because that's his business. He's in the business of trading whiskey for promissory notes. And so you find someone who's in that business, and it's a very easy deal to do. Part of this is from another class I've taught, but one thing I'd like to emphasize, and for people in this room too, okay, making money on real estate versus investing for profit in real estate. These are different sets of benefits sought. When we seek a commission, we seek to make money on real estate. Okay, we're not investing anything but our time. There are groups of people who are out there to make money in real estate, absolutely legitimate, beneficial. There are also people out there with money seeking a return on investment in real estate. Those are different sets of benefits. Those are offsetting, often work together sets of benefits, okay? There are people with money who need to make more money. There are people without money who want to make money. We got real estate. We can solve that problem. Okay, benefits and motivations. So why do people do these things? You know, we see the benefits, why they do it. Why are they doing so? A lot of times geographic considerations. There's some reason you had grandkids. Some reason you want to do something different. You've owned the damn thing 27 years and it's residential. The benefits have gone away. You need something different, even if it's the same thing. Even very often I'll have a client sell their property and then buy it back at a much higher price a few years later to get their depreciation back because they lost that benefit of the property. They love the property, but it's no longer so beneficial because it has no depreciation left. So why not trade out of it and buy it back at a higher price and get your depreciation back? As long as it's amortized, the kids are going to end up in the same place. It's a wise thing to do. Seems counterintuitive. Absolutely a good, very beneficial thing to do. Age of the owner. Are they really young? Are they really old? We know the differences of really young people and really old people. Do we have difficult tenants? Want to be more active or passive? We do or we don't need a job, or we've got a relative who does or doesn't need a job. All of this doesn't really matter. Just remember, a seller, who's the seller, wants out of title. That's the definition of a seller, is somebody who wants out of title. So that's the benefit they seek, okay? We're seeking to give them that benefit, and that is to get out of title, okay? Next slide, please. Look at that. I just say it. A lot of this is for help and people who are trying to find people who do these things. Remember, it's not about you, it's about them, right? Nobody woke up this morning thinking, how am I going to solve Blake's problem, right? Nobody woke up this morning thinking, how can I get more money into Blake's bank account? How can I solve his problems? They don't wake up thinking that. They wake up thinking, hey, how can I get more money into my bank account? You know, what can I do today? How can I go have some fun? It's not about you, okay? It's about them. If you're only worried about you, you're probably not going to close very many deals. Some of these are my personal biases, forgive me. Don't send blind offers, call rather than email, and don't text, for God's sakes. If you're going to send somebody an offer, when you're offering them a deed of trust for their property, and you don't call it with a call, or leave with a call, what do you think is going to happen? Absolutely nothing. They're going to think you're nuts. They won't even return the email. Because when a broker is confronted with something he doesn't understand, what does a broker do? They disappear. Their phone doesn't work. They barely understand. They go on vacation, and they don't know. And they're not going to admit it. They're not going to say that's the reason. The reason is because their seller doesn't want to do that kind of deal. They never dealt with it. That's my own biases. I'll back out of that. And then get to know what the sellers want through broker communication. Work with brokers who counsel their clients, brokers who know the benefits their clients are seeking, brokers who can come to a room and say, hey, I have a pretty good idea that my client's going to do that deal, and then we've got a chance to get it successful. Okay, it's really hard. That client said, what do you want for oh, anything? Well, that makes it really hard. We have to go out and say, hey, anybody who wants my thing with anything, please come in for my thing. Well, no, we want to be active. We want to be making offers out as well. So you need to know, and it just it helps. You don't have to. Sellers and buyers are members of the public. We're public servants. It's our duty to get them the benefits they need. It sure works better when you spend time with them, gotten to know them, educated them, and they really buy into the process. A lot of times it's cash that they're worried about, and that's what I put the little thing. The new loans can often bring the cash they need, and I mentioned the nanosecond rule, okay? 1 nanosecond after you close that exchange, now you've replaced your debt loan, you can go borrow the money from your property again without taxation, okay? If cash is the point, if cash is what they want, that's the way they can get their cash. Now, they may have to also be able to borrow, or somebody might need to be able to borrow, but after the deal, the portion that they need with cash should be borrowed money. Now, they can take the cash in the exchange and pay tax on that portion, and if their idea of how tax rates are going to go in the future versus now, we're in an unusual situation now. Let's just step back and say that for a minute. We, for one of the first times in a while, are not sure what the tax rates are going to be in 2022. I guess I shouldn't say forever. It happens from time. There are some people out there who are saying, let's pay our taxes now, get our basis back up to the top so that we trade again. And that's absolutely fine. You can do these same things and you can recognize the gain. Okay? You can say, I sold it for that much and I'm paying my taxes. Now I bought it for that much because I'm going to start depreciating it again. You can recognize the gain if it's to your advantage. So if you have a lot of net operating losses, might be a reason to do it, okay? And you want to get depreciation in the future. A lot of reasons to do it. I don't want to get too far afield, but really think about the benefits they need and dissect it to those benefits so that you know you're really helping the client in the best way you can. And money borrowed after the fact is not taxable. But again, taxation may be beneficial. That's one thing. That's not always the case. Okay, so next page, cash carry considerations. So again, I can only speak out of one mouth. Everything that comes out of this mouth is my opinion. Okay, hopefully, and most of it's factual, but when I look at some of these things, like sellers should only take cash and pay taxes for needs other than real estate. That is my belief. Okay, if they have, thank you, dear. If they have any real estate needs, they shouldn't be taking cash for that. They should only take it for the other needs, okay? Some people may differ in that opinion. And here's where I use improperly a number as a verb. 1031 is not a verb, but it is now. Okay, so seller can 1031 cash, paper, or anything. Okay? Doesn't matter what it is. Bullet point 3, price becomes less important to buyer with less loan costs and hassles. Do you think we might be getting to a little bit of the point of what we're doing here, right? Who's going to pay the most for it? It's the guy who can't get a loan, right? The guy who needs you to help him get a loan. The one that needs the financing. That's most likely going to pay the highest price. The focus should be on the benefits the seller seeks and the buyer's ability to deliver those benefits, okay? With the question, why do they really want that cash? Now, if you've got a sick child, if you've got some kid going to college, you've got some real human need for capital, absolutely. Nothing works like cash, okay? You can help people in Africa with cash. It's harder with some of these other things, okay? All kinds of things you can do. So if they really need it, and if that's what they want to do is an endowment to help other people, and that's what the cash is, well, that could do it. But then, oh, wait a minute. We might be able to set up a financial instrument that takes care of those people in perpetuity. at a lower expense, okay? And so let's talk about the benefits they want, and that's just brainstorming off the top of my head. But that's part of the reason, okay? Next slide here. The pros and cons of carry versus cash, okay? I already said cash is a depreciating asset that comes with a burden of taxation, okay? And again, we have plenty of ladies in here, no offense. It's a 4-letter word that starts with C. It's not a good thing. Okay, cash is liquid and universally accepted, absolutely. You can take it to the bar. Definitely a plus. Notes bear interest, they're a plus. Notes are usually secured by bigger assets. If someone defaults on a note, you usually get more. You got a big pain in the ass, but you got more. If the federal government ever defaults on these Federal Reserve notes, we're all, as we say, F-U-C-T. There's not going to be, we're done if that happens. Notes are guaranteed by the borrower, not the federal government. We all believe a lot more in the federal government than we do in our fellow Americans. I hate to say it, no matter what we're going to say politically and how we're all going to pound our chests and all. Any one of us, myself included, you're going to take an IOU of this kind a lot quicker than you're going to take one that's written up by somebody else, just because you can go do it. The last one, new loans often need underwriting to generate cash. Okay, is that a pro or a con? Right, exactly. So the new loan, sometimes the hassle, but why we do this, okay? Because and underwriting is the problem. But underwriting is a good thing, okay? Loans without underwriting are inherently more risky than loans without underwriting, okay? Let's just fess up to it and look at it, okay? So there's the positive of time factor. There's the negative of the universality of, objectivity of that deal, which generally third-party lenders, appraisals, and underwriting handles that. And that's really, once we're talking about the trust gap, the $20 bill is just to bridge the gap in trust, all right? And that's what underwriting is. Underwriting helps bridge that gap in trust, okay? Because you want to know that it's a good one. All right, next page. How many people have seen this before? Yeah, everybody loves this one, right? I'll just read this because I just love this slide, okay? I don't know, maybe somebody out there, and they're probably zooming up. The experts out there on Zoom, somebody's going to tell me who made this thing, all right? So somebody let me know who originally wrote this thing. But, without proper annotation, yes, I violated their copyright, forgive me.
Wasn't it Bill Broadbent?
It might have been Bill Broadbent. Anyhow, how else can you expand the market for your property? Ask yourself, can I accept something other than cash for my equity? There are always more takers in the marketplace with notes or equity than cash buyers. And this is the illustration. So you got one cash buyer, you got people with notes, you got people with other property that they want to get rid of. Those are sellers. Those are sellers, okay? They want you to buy theirs. There are sellers everywhere, people everywhere, and then the bottom is, shit, I'm going to buy my way out of this. I'm going to add $100,000, I'm going to add $1 million of cash. You take my thing, you'll take, anyone in this room is going to take this, $5 million cash. You can take 100 of them, right? Because you're just going to throw them away and take the $1 million of cash. My favorite part of the slide is right up in the corner, and it is potential takers can disappear in smoke because of sellers' inflexibility. Isn't that the chimney? Isn't that brilliant? The potential takers can disappear in smoke because of sellers' inflexibility. And I like that stuff. So bottom line is, the whole idea here is we're trying to increase takers for our property. So now instead of just saying, I only want the one with cash, we can say, I'll take the guy with the down payment and carry the financing. We can do that. We can take both tiers of these people now, right? And actually, we take the third one too, because we can turn it into paper too. So we know we can now expand it just out of the cash to the cash people with notes. All right? The next slide is another one everyone knows. The only reason I put this up here is to point it out. Which one of these things? We got a lawyer in here, right? What's the right answer for any question, Michael? Depends, right? That's always the right answer, right? So all of these are the most valuable to the person who finds them the most valuable, okay? The benefits that your seller sees. If you do not know how your seller feels about these things, I have to think of the popular vernacular expression without foul words. My dad would call that pissing up a limp rope. No swear words there. Okay, by the way, just so you know, those of you who know me, I learned real estate with filthy one-liners from my father, and that's still in there, and I really do my best to keep it from going out. Okay, benefits. I was like, remember, like that you are unique. Okay? Next line, just like everyone else. Okay, everyone's unique, just like you. Everyone wants something different. That's the key to real estate. Different benefits sought and offered to create a marketplace. Ease of financing is often a benefit sought that can be easily delivered and create new opportunities for all. Okay? But the key is we're all different. If we didn't, so what I always tell people is I go to an exchange meeting, I'm a guy with 3 or 4 jigsaw puzzle pieces, okay? And some of them are outies and some of them are innies, we've all seen jigsaw puzzles, right? And so I'm going around the room trying to run into people and say, hey, man, you got the other piece of this. Because once we get 2, we're starting to make a picture, okay? And that's what we're doing. We're not looking for everybody. If every piece were square, we could never make a picture, okay? All right, okay, and guess what we're going to do now? We're going to get back to a cartoon for you. The first formula in most exchange books, okay, besides the unpriced listing, I say out of respect for Bob, who's probably listening, the second in most books is the creation of wealth formula, okay? First question, does this create wealth? Any of you?
Absolutely.
Over time?
Yeah.
Right. But does it right now? No. You're just transferring equity. So what we do, creation of wealth formula. You own, in this case, you're not trying to buy the house, you're trying to buy this $400,000 fourplex, okay? You own a $250,000 house that's got a tenant in it. This isn't the house you live in. You own a house with a tenant in it. You owe $100,000 on it. The market's been really good to you, and now the thing's worth $250,000. You say, I really like that. I'm still getting depreciation, everything I want in that place. I really like it. I'm gonna keep it. I'm not getting rid of that one. But gosh, I really like that fourplex. Traditionally, the realtor would say, hey, I'm gonna earn 2 commissions. Let's go ahead and sell that one, and then I'll earn another commission when you buy this one over here. Okay, let's go ahead and do that, because that's what I do for a living. I transact business, I make commissions. But we've got a counselor. The counselor says, well, God, why would you ever want to get rid of that lovely house with that tenant? Well, you don't want to get rid of that, do you? No, okay. Well, but you want that fourplex. Well, yeah, I need that. Okay, I know how we can do this. We're going to create a $100,000 second note behind your $100,000 first on that property. To be safe, let's make sure that the debt service ratio, coverage ratio is still there. That the tenant pays enough money monthly to cover both of the notes. This is just for those concerned about safety. That's not a requirement. Okay, that doesn't matter at all. You create a $100,000 note, and you go over to that savvy investor who has the $400,000 fourplex that he bought years ago for $150,000. You say, I want to give you a $100,000 note, and since I'm really borrowable, I'm going to go get a $300,000 new loan for you. I'm going to give you $300,000 cash and $100,000 note for your property. Okay. Now this guy could always take this in 1031 forward. That's what we're going to get to. The bottom line is he can say, and most people might, my goodness, I got more cash, I got twice cash for the amount I paid for the house. And now rather than pay taxes on the rest of it, I pay tax on that. Rather than pay tax on the rest, I get an installment sale for another $100,000. I'm going to get a $500 monthly payment for the next 5 years and then another $100,000. Hell yeah, I'll do that deal. And so they do that, okay? And so now we've closed just one transaction. Okay, so Mr. Realtor, sorry, we just got one fee here, all right? But again, our duty is to serve the public, and sometimes we get paid. Okay, that's how my dad taught me to rule Scott.
So I just want to clarify, so the, basically property owner.
No, so we'll be clear. So what he's talking about, most of that's right, but I just want to clarify, okay? First of all, we have $150,000 equity to work with. We're only going to use 100 of it. So there's still some equity back there, so that if there's a default, the guy gets himself a kicker, okay? We're going to go to the new property, and we're going to borrow the loan, okay, on the $300,000, because we have a regular contract that shows a $100,000 down payment, and we want a new loan. So we're going to take it to Mr. Banker, and he gives us a 75% loan to value. So the seller gets $300,000 in money and $100,000 note, okay? That's just repeating and clarifying Scott's question about it, okay? So now we get down here and say, okay, so we've got a $250,000 house with $100,000 debt. And Now we also have, and then what we went to was a fourplex of 400,000 value with 100,000 new note and 300,000 new debt, okay? We started with 150,000 equity in the house, okay? We ended up with 150,000 equity in the house. This is a transactional formula. It does not invent equity, okay? We just kept 50 in the house and we moved 100,000 in the fourplex because this second note is against the house, okay? There's only one loan against the fourplex for 300,000 now, okay? 100,000 of your equity is now in the fourplex, only 50,000 is in the house, okay? Guess what you can do tomorrow afternoon? You go borrow 50 or 75,000 against that fourplex and do it again, okay? As long as, you know, it's going to diminish how much you can do because you only started with 150,000 equity. Now, if you turn like 12 or 24 pages on the calendar, shit, that might be 300 and 500 if you're in Colorado Springs, okay? So now it's a totally different factor. And so that's, you know, the only way you really make money in real estate is by turning the pages on the calendar, okay? The rest of it is just switching equities around and other stuff. And yes, you can make money by stealing things on the purchase, and the young people think you make everything on your buy, and sometimes that works. But you don't have to steal things in order to make a profit in real estate. You can actually treat everybody right and do well. Again, opinions, pontificating, forgive me. So, questions?
Questions from the group? Online? Dina has her hand up. I don't know if she's waiting. Dina, do you have a question?
Good morning. Hi. Good to see you. I'm just finishing a bite of cereal. So here's my question. I got a property, I'm going to exchange it, and I'm going to inherit paper. And what happens if the person who's at the note repays me? And then, oh, now I've got taxable event.
Okay. All right. Well, if we're doing this, if you're doing it with a note and it's and the note's going to the qualified intermediary, this is you're talking about taking a note. Note goes to the qualified intermediary. Are you talking about the note paying out before, in the middle of the exchange, when the intermediary has it?
No.
Okay. All right. So if you're talking about after you receive it, and I'm assuming you're not going to do a 1031 forward with it, right? You're going to receive the note and keep it?
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay, so if you're going to do a 1031 forward with it, you don't care. The next people will get paid cash at some point. And you don't really care if you're taking it on the installment sale part except the taxation part. So what'll happen if you, for instance, are the seller on this last formula with the creation of wealth formula, you got the $300,000 cash and the $100,000 note. If the people 6 months later pay off the $100,000 note, now you've got to pay the taxes on that installment sale. So,
Right, I don't like that.
okay, well then you shouldn't have taken the note and kept it. What you should do is trade it forward for other real estate. So you give that note to your qualified intermediary and you go buy another piece of real estate with it. That person who received it now can either pass that to the next person and keep doing 1031s, but somebody is going to cash out, and there's somebody going to be looking for that cash. So that should work well. I'd like everybody to know also, though, if it were held by the qualified intermediary in that 180-day phase and it got paid off in cash, there's no big deal. Instead of these promissory notes that have interest, they would just be back to Federal Reserve notes, and it would be cash in with the qualified intermediary to the next piece. So what you want to do is, you don't want to hang on to the paper with an installment sale if you're afraid they're going to pay off, or else that would be a time to engineer a prepayment penalty into the note. Another thing I want everybody to understand, these notes can say anything we want them to say, provided that it's legal. Okay, so it doesn't, you can say, you cannot prepay this, or I've got, you know, you can't have their child, but can't prepay this, or I get your car, you know, that kind of thing. Or you have this big prepayment penalty, yield maintenance, you're gonna have to pay me all the interest I would ever have made on this loan, and if you do that, then I'm okay. And so no, that's a great question, Dina, because it does raise a lot of the different issues. You want to make sure where the note is and when, and what your tax treatment's going to be, and you want to go just from real estate to real estate if you can. If you're okay taking the installment sale, realize there's a risk of getting paid off. I'd say you might, the day before they pay off, you could trade it in and buy something else with it. and then let them get paid off. So if you have a note ready to pay off, call anyone in the room. A lot of us will call you and say, we love that note that's gonna pay off tomorrow.
Hey, Blake,
Yes, Ted?
Dina could buy her note out of the facilitator. You might review that, because that would, if she's got the liquidity, it puts liquidity in the facilitator where all the gain is. And if she buys 100,000 note for 100 and it pays off for 100, there's no gain there other than the interest that she collects, which is minimal. So buy your own note. Review that, Blake.
And I can tell you right now, I couldn't say that any better, Ted. That was an excellent way that you pointed that out. Yes, you can always buy the note if you have liquidity, and looking at your overall taxes. You're gonna look at your after-tax dollars in both cases and really have to pay attention and keep your eye on the ball. But absolutely, Ted, you are right, spot on there.
Take it one step farther and actually buy a note secured by a note with your own IRA.
Yep. As long as you don't cross the self-dealing.
Cross the streams.
That's why you got
Yeah,
somebody.
Don't cross the streams.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. Cool, all righty. Any other questions from the Zoomies or from the room? The Zoomies or the Roomies? No? Okay. All right, we are back to, what I'm gonna do is actually go back a slide behind to where we were.
I like that, Blake, zoomies and roomies.
Yeah, Zoomies and Roomies, I think that's the new one from here on out. Zoomies and Roomies. And I just bumped that up. Anyhow, let's go back to that creation of wealth formula, okay? One thing that Chuck pointed out, and it is very important, as far as tracking the debt service, okay? When we created this note and we bought the new fourplex with the note, we now have two $100,000 debts on that single family house. You have to make the payments, okay? This is borrowed money, okay? Whenever you create paper and you go buy something, and this is so fundamental, I forget to back up. You gotta make the payments, folks, okay? The bottom line is you're borrowing money just like you were from the bank. You don't make the payments, you lose your real estate, okay? So in this scenario, we had to make payments on $100,000 first, $100,000 second, and a $300,000 first, because you can only trade that part of the property that you own. The bank, in this case, owns 3/4 of this one, and now 4/5 of it is owned between the bank and the seller of the other property, okay? You have 50,000 equity and 100,000 equity for the 150 you started with, and that's all you've got, okay? We didn't magically create something, but you absolutely have gone from $100,000 of debt to $400,000 of debt, right? Is that correct? No, sorry, to $500,000 of debt. You've gone from $100,000 of debt to $500,000 of debt because you bought a $400,000 property with debt. Okay, so if you can't service the $500,000 in debt, don't do this deal. Okay, that's the bottom line. You've got to be able to service the debt all the way around, or it all comes crashing down, and that $150,000 is going to be zero. Okay, so a piece of paper, a contract, is just a piece of paper that keeps honest people honest. Okay, I think we all know that, right? Alrighty. So let's go in next slide. Comparing this to take it on to where we're going to be. So like I said, believe it or not, you've only been this an hour, and you're only going to listen to an hour more. The goal is here within an hour, you're going to be the other experts in the world on this, right? And you are by definition. Let's start comparing creation of wealth formula, something that we've all known for decades, to what we're doing here. Creation of wealth, create new debt against existing assets and use it to buy new assets. We saw that. 1031 paper, create new debt through the sale of real estate, sell or carry, and use it to buy new assets. Right, same thing. Both involve buying property with paper and the caveats that come with not like-kind exchanging. In both cases, the seller of the new assets can use the paper in the next transaction if they don't want the paper. It could go from qualified intermediary to qualified intermediary, all the way as long as you gave up, you surrendered a deed, you received a deed, okay, or an equivalent instrument. Neither formula creates equity, right? I showed you that 150,000, we didn't create it. We moved it. Neither formula creates equity, they move equity. Okay, they're transactional formulas. They don't suddenly, nope, not enough pages on the calendar of terms. It doesn't make money. Now everybody ready to put your thinking caps on and we'll go through the whole process here, okay? We're gonna start at the beginning, okay? Stuart Watkins has a $25,000 RV, don't you, Stuart? There you go. Okay, Stuart Watkins got a $25,000 RV. He likes little houses. There's a little house down in Tucson, Arizona, where he really likes little houses, and it's $100,000. And Stuart says, I'm gonna buy that $100,000 house. I got a $25,000 RV, and I got nothing else but this pretty hat, okay? But I can sign my name, and you know me, I've been in business a long time, you know if I sign my name on a piece of paper that says I'm gonna give you a payment, Stuart, have you ever not made a payment that you promised? That's what I think he's doing. It's 70 years old, he's never not made a payment he's promised in his life, okay? That paper's real good. Okay? The guy with the house says, we love you, Stuart. Hate that RV. Don't need paper. I want the $400,000 fourplex we saw in the last example, right? That's what he wants. So I say, okay. Stuart says, well, I'm a patient guy. I'll give you this stuff and I'll wait for you. Is there any reason you wouldn't accept it if you're able to find something that you want in lieu of what I'm giving you, okay? In lieu of the $25,000 RV and the $75,000 note, if you can get that thing, will you do the deal? Yeah, I'll do the deal if I can take what you give me and I can get my fourplex and I don't have to do anything, okay? And we're gonna use the example where we're gonna make it all paper. And I'm gonna go through it again with all cash and see how it probably works in the commercial CCIM kind of world as far as getting people to pay attention. So, $400,000 fourplex, we cover that owner. And we say, hey bud, I got a $25,000 RV you don't want. I got a first note on a house that you may or may not want. And I want to offer you a $300,000 first on your property as well. Okay, so what I'm offering you is a $25,000 RV, a $75,000 first on a house, and a $300,000 first on your fourplex that you own right now. Okay? Will you take it? No, because that's not what I want. Okay, but you want something else, right? Now, if you can take the benefits I give you and acquire that next property without having to write a check, is there any reason you wouldn't do it? Oh no, I'll do that, okay. Well, what do you want? He wants the $1 million little retail center, because he's got a fourplex, he's going up, okay? He wants a $1 million retail center. Okay, well, if you can get your retail center with what we're giving you, will you do it? He said, sure. So we go, there's a guy with $1 million shopping center. He's got it on the market for sale. He's gonna do a 1031 maybe, okay? Most likely, it's a shopping center, it's on the market. In people's opinions, what's the percentage chance a shopping center on the market is gonna do a 1031? Greater than 50%? Usually I'd say that when they sell it, they're not gonna pay the taxes. Okay? They're probably gonna buy something else, okay? Usually, maybe not, but anyhow. So we're gonna go, well, what do we have? We've got this set of benefits, the RV, the note, and the note. We wanna buy this $1 million property. So you see how this is going here. We're gonna say, okay, Mr. Fourplex buyer, will you buy this and sign on another $600,000 loan in order to buy it? Because obviously what you've got is $400,000. You're going to need $600,000 more, right? You plan on signing on a new loan for that, right? Yeah, sure, I'll sign on a new loan. So this can be a new loan or a seller carry, but we're going to use seller carry for this. So when he comes to Mr. Strip Center owner, he's got a $1 million strip center, he says, I'm going to give you a $25,000 RV that you do not care about whatsoever. I'm going to give you a $75,000 first note on a single family home with a $25,000 down payment. Good note. We give you a $300,000 first loan on a fourplex with a $100,000 down payment. It's $300,000 loan on a $400,000 fourplex. Real good piece of paper. And how I'm going to balance is I'm going to give you a 60% loan to value note against your property for the balance. So what you're gonna get is a $600,000 note, a $300,000 note, a $75,000 note, and Stuart's lovely little $25,000 RV, okay? So, you can imagine if, when I said from the beginning, we went to a new loan each time, the guy's getting $975 cash and a $25,000 RV. He's gonna close, right? Because what the hell? But this is all paper, okay? And the guy says, shit, I'm doing a 1031. If I take your cash or your note, I gotta go buy something. Once again, we say, sir, if you can get what you want with what we're giving you, is there any reason you wouldn't do it? No, I'll do that. What do you want? Oh man, I want $2 million motel across the street or something. I don't know. Motel's bad. A bigger strip center or an industrial building. How's that? We don't have to do anything. He wants a $2 million industrial building. Goes to the owner of that $2 million industrial building and says, hey, man, what I got is a bunch of paper. And I'd really like you to carry, or you guy who might just carry all this stuff and want paper. I mean, if I give you all money, what you gonna do with it? So I'll put it in the bank. How much the bank gonna give you? 0.25%, something like that. Okay, how about we give you 4% or 6%, something like that? Would that be better? Oh yeah, that's much better than what I'm getting back. Okay. Mr. $2 million strip center. We're gonna give you $1 million first loan against your strip center. Okay? That's gonna be the only debt on your strip center. You're gonna be in first position, $1 million. I'm gonna give you a $600,000 first note against my strip center. Okay? I'm gonna give you a $300,000 first note against the fourplex with a $100,000 down payment. I'm gonna give you a $75,000 first note on a house that had a $25,000 down payment. I'm gonna give you that RV. You're gonna get all that stuff, okay? So, this guy here, the world is his oyster, right? As they say. This guy can do whatever he wants. He can go buy $2 million worth of something. If we did each step of this except the first one were cash, or the first two were cash, and we only need a seller carry for the little house, and everybody else were credit worthy, this would be $1 million of cash, $600,000 cash, $300,000 cash, and then a 75 note and an RV. Okay, he'd be getting $1.9 million of his $2 million in cash if that's cash. Otherwise, he's getting paper. Again, depending on who you are, some people's opinion better than cash. Okay, it's cash with interest. So that's what he's getting. Okay, let's go to the chapter. Okay, so assume everybody starts free and clear. Okay, I'm going to go through an example with debt after this to show you with a little vignette of debt. I don't want to put you through this with debt because this would be a little more involved. So, buyer A, that's Stuart, gets the property one with whatever down, that's his RV, and the seller carry first. Okay, you got that wonderful property. Seller one gets the one with the house, got the fourplex, subject to a new $300,000 loan. Guy with the fourplex got the $1 million strip center, subject to a new loan. The last one got a $2 million strip center, guy got a $2 million strip center, subject to a new loan. Everybody went out in debt and equity. As you see, as this happens, it becomes mostly cash and paper, the amount of other stuff, okay? At some point, the brokers might accept the whatever down. That means I'm going to be owning Stuart's RV and seller carry note on property one, and it would close with seller four getting all cash or paper. So if we used all cash in this example, the $1.9 million of cash, and all there was a seller carry note and an RV, look what we did. We closed $3.5 million of property. We're in a meeting with competitors. We cannot discuss commissions or any amount that we make, okay? I don't imagine that, we couldn't all imagine in our world though, if we closed $3.5 million worth of real estate, how we may have earned the $75,000 note and the $25,000 RV. Most cases, the real estate fees are gonna total more than the first property, okay? So the last guy says, I don't want that first property. He says, it doesn't matter, you owe it to us in fees, okay? This closes, the brokers might have to take paper and an RV for part of their fee, okay? But it happens. The fact is that any of the sellers along the way, like the RV, that part of it's solved. But anyhow, this is how it happens. And now this next guy would have all this paper, and he can go buy an $8 million or something. And it just keeps happening. And now you can imagine this first note, as we're talking about when it pays out, right? Dina's question, okay? If this is a 30-year fully amortizing first note, who knows who's gonna have it, okay? Because, okay, what happened? This first guy had it, now this guy had it, this guy had it, now this guy had it. It's gone through 4 qualified intermediaries, okay? He's gonna give it to someone else. It's conceivable, it could be with a qualified intermediary when it paid out. The payments are not 1031 money. Payments are ordinary income. They're interest. They're taxable, and they can be used to pay all those crap fees that you have to do when you do these kind of things. You can pay your qualified intermediary fee with the interest, for instance, because I don't think that would be a problem, okay? It's not designated money. The interest is ordinary income, taxable. It's gonna come out of the deal, okay? None of these people want the cash, right? And so we just keep being asked, because everyone here surrendered, relinquished real estate and replaced real estate, and everyone fit the 1031 rule. Okay, so there wasn't, our government didn't get any taxation on this, except through the huge boom of stimulating the economy. As we all know, it gives the government even more money when we do this. So, any questions here or Zoom on this crazy cartoon that I've drawn?
Zoom questions, just anyone, just unmute your mic one at a time. Try that, see how it goes.
I'll do one question. So how many years of prepaid interest can you do on any of these notes, please? 1 year?
Your question is how many years of prepaid interest you can do on these loans?
Yeah, that close. Because you mentioned, using interest to pay fees and paying the, QI, etc.
Yeah, Dan, that's a how long is a piece of rope question. You can set these things up any way you want to. The interest payments don't have to be prepaid. They're going to come in monthly. Yes, you could ask somebody to prepay. You could ask all kinds of other stuff. Asking somebody to prepay for your real estate with cash, though, I would talk to your CPA or your tax person, because that may be part of the consideration for the purchase and be required to be put within the 1031. You managed to go beyond my skill level, Dan, with that question. Thank you. I never thought about prepaid interest. Yeah, prepaid interest would be a whole other thing to think about. I don't know. So, but thanks, Dan. Any other questions? This is Stump the Expert. You 1 for 1.
All right.
All right. Sherry, you had a question?
So from the income, at least it defers the taxation and chunks it into however many years of the term of the note.
She's talking about, okay, so
Yeah, we're gonna have to repeat the question.
Repeat the question. She's basically just setting up the question, saying, yes, this defers the taxation on the gain from the real estate as you go forward, but not the interest on the note. Is that what you're thinking?
Right.
Well, but the paper is not like kind, and you.
No, the paper is not like kind. It goes to a qualified intermediary, just like money.
So, but you still at least slow down the immediate payment of,
Yes.
of the tax.
Yes, you definitely deferred the taxation.
If that note, if one of those notes in the chain gets paid off, as long as you reinvest that in a note within, what?
No, so she's saying if one of the notes pays off, Sherry's question is if you're doing it, one of the notes pays off, then you have a certain amount of time to reinvest in a note. No, you don't. That's all going to be held within the qualified intermediary, or you've got it. Okay, so if you have the note in your possession, like you're the guy at the end and he's got an installment sale, when they pay out, you pay the taxes, okay, because it's an installment sale. So you pay ordinary income on the interest portion, and then you pay a pro rata share on the ratio of your basis to your sales price on the on how much you pay taxes on the rest of it. Okay, and this is where I was talking. Everything you know is still true. Okay, just because I had this talk didn't mean that I changed the laws. All those laws are still the same. We're just trying to fit within them by not using Federal Reserve notes. Albert Goldberg. For the people in Zoom, he's saying what we traditionally do is we continue to defer taxes through exchanges. Yes, you're correct.
No, but the real main point of the whole 1031 system is if you build up from $1 million to 60 million and you die at 80, 90, 100, we your kids aren't based on actual
Yeah.
ability.
So what he's talking about, yeah, we defer, and then we die, and then our kids get an adjusted basis, okay? Absolutely, that's what we do.
Swap
So
till you drop.
yeah, you swap till you drop. When you're gone, then your kids are gonna get the adjusted basis in the current taxation system that we have today, okay? There's one of the few things that may or may not, I don't think 1031 is gonna be targeted because we've proven how much it devastates the GDP. The step up in basis, you know, again, talk to your politicians because that's probably more likely to be in the crosshairs, I would think, than 1031. Again, just my opinion. But you're right, as long as the law continues to say that we can give it to our kids with adjusted basis, you're good. Paul Krause, attorney.
I had a question about if one of the buyers offered a note that was not, the interest payments were not going to be paid until, let's just say, starting in month 60.
Okay. So first of all, so if a buyer offered to do a deal, he offered a note, and there weren't any payments to be delivered until maybe 5 years.
Is the receiver of that note going to have to pay taxes each year as phantom income?
Okay, is the receiver of that note going to have to pay taxes each year as phantom income? And that would be a CPA question because my interpretation would be, I tell my CPA no, that we're going to interpret it that no, but again, you know, and another thing I've talked about with tax experts and do not have a definitive opinion, you could perhaps have the note be appraised as well, okay? And that note's not going to be worth shit, pardon my expression, but it's not going to be worth face value. So there's another wrinkle there potentially. All of this, like I've said before, way beyond my skill on the tax advice level, but you're right, when you take a different note, and some people might have a different opinion. Anyone have an opinion if you take a note without a payment for 5 years? What'll happen, Michael?
I don't think you have to report it as phantom income.
So Michael Figueroa believes you don't have to report it as phantom income, and I would tend to, it can, because you didn't actually get anything. You didn't get anything, it's when you got something, because the guy can still default on that note. And then the government would owe you taxes back, and the government does not want to owe you taxes back under any circumstances.
Right.
So, yes, sir.
My really goes. If you wanted to clear much money, just to be clear about that. I'm not sure if maybe there's other applications before.
You're a little
You
rough.
won't pay taxes on that until you receive the income.
Right, absolutely, as we agree, you're not gonna pay taxes on until you receive the income. Our vast tax expertise has, you know, vetted this, and we got a letter from the IRS already, right? No, all jokes aside, we're not experts.
Notice the brick wall behind them.
Talk to you guys, yeah, talk to you. Yeah. I don't see where it says 5 foot and 6 foot on there. Yeah. All right, that's really funny. Yes, sir.
The IRS still allows you to avoid a qualified intermediary. This still would work, I would guess, like at a two-way.
Oh, yes, so yeah, you don't have to have a qualified intermediary if you're doing on a spontaneous exchange. So right from the beginning.
Simultaneous, yeah.
Right from the beginning, a guy, Sturgis Dornbush, did this. He's another person who intentionally did this as a part of his business. And they would sit around the table, the deeds go one direction, the deeds of trust go the other direction, and they close them simultaneously at the same table at the same time. In fact, I think once they did 30-something of them, and it took them 3 days, which I don't know how you cover simultaneous when it actually took 3 days to sign the papers. But, you know, again. So anyhow,
But it would be good protection.
right.
I know that.
And I had originally said I was gonna go through this and then stop and make you go through those slides again, but I won't torture you so much unless you guys wanna go through that again, okay? Other questions from those cartoons? You've got them in your book, so you can follow through them. What I'll give you now, or say, go ahead and get us to the next slide, is I'll give you some examples. So, these deals actually happen. These deals actually close. I've closed these deals, okay? I am a witness, okay? You can do these. Everyone in this room, I would like you to start thinking about doing this, and we're gonna start a little exercise at the end to get you geared into the marketing session. And I hope that in this marketing session, whatever the amount of inventory we have, we can double it and quadruple it by creating paper against the assets and doing what we're saying here. So 1031 paper examples. Okay, so beautiful office building in Colorado Springs, and we could show you a picture of it if everyone needs a picture, but I'm not I have issues with that. People need a picture, forgive me. There's an office building, 10,000 square foot office building in Colorado Springs, sold for $630,000. And this was about, I don't know, 8 years ago, 7, 8 years ago or something. Hell of a deal on the office building. Now it's probably worth $2 million, but it's I'm exaggerating, maybe $1.5 million. But anyhow, bottom line is at that point we had a buyer for it, and the appraisers couldn't get it to appraise. Appraisers are people that wear mirrors in front of them, and they can only see
Backwards.
that way, and they just keep running into things because they can only look backwards. And so they couldn't get it to appraise. Ironically, by the time we had this done, they could have. So we've got a willing buyer. He had $180,000 cash. We'd done another deal with him. It's another 1031 paper deal. We knew the guy was a financial planner. He had $180,000 of other people's money he needed to invest. And he chose this office building. We sold it to him with $180,000 cash down, carried $450,000. Everybody always wants to know the terms, so I put them in there with 6% interest only, paid monthly, with $50,000 annual balloon payments each year, the whole thing due in 4 years. Okay, so you start, you get $2,250 a month, and then the guy pays you $50 grand, then you get $2,000 a month for a year, and he pays you $50 grand, and then you get $1,750 a month, and then he pays you $50 grand. You know, hell of a good number, okay? You've got $180,000 now. Real secure, okay? So next slide. So I took this proposed note, so I had a contract, okay, from a guy with $180,000 down, wanted to sell a carrier. I created an exchange package. For a lot of investor groups, I now show them what an exchange package is. I unfortunately don't have to show all of you what it is. I took an exchange package to the marketing session. It says here's a $450,000 first note, and I want to buy it. We thought we were looking for mini storage and apartments, because that's what my client knew how to do. Turns out people with mini storage and apartments are so proud they only take that cash, okay? They think that that's the only way they can do business because they got some people want to buy with cash. And God bless them, it's true, you will get cash buyers for it. There was a guy with a $3 million campground. Turns out that KOA campgrounds and RV parks, while they're now a hot commodity like that, they weren't so much then, and people didn't know. So heck, I don't know. So we're offered this. I said, I got to take it to my client and find out. It seems like it would work. It's a bunch of little streams of income that you manage, put together. You pay a bit and a note, similar to running an apartment or mini storage. She had to go to KOA University, okay, to do it, to approve for the lender and to be approved to do all, run an RV park for KOA. The buyer is a guy with $180,000. He needs to invest. He's got to get a return on investment. He can't wait for us doing all this shit. So we said, we'll give you a master lease at the same exact terms as if you had made the down payment. Okay, so his investors are now getting the same return as they would on their $180,000 from day one on the master lease, okay? Okay, everybody understand that? So what we're doing is we're going to go ahead, he would have the payment of the $2,250 that we'd have to make, and he'd receive the rents and all the rest, and we made the same net amount to him for his investors that he would have had he put the $180,000 down. It was still sitting on the side because we couldn't close the deal yet, okay? This is how we get him willing to do it. It'll make a little more sense later why we would do that. Okay, the buyer created the paper. The whole process took 18 months, all right? When we finally got done, after the KOA University getting the financing on the campground and everything else, we closed the office building, and then 1 week later, we closed the KOA campground, okay? If you close in the 45 days you have identified. That's how I prefer to do it. It's less paperwork by definition. If they ever went back and looked, it happened. So we had to get all the due diligence and the financing done. Okay, so she had to go and make sure that that RV park made enough money, and that's what she wanted, and all the rest of it. She had to go get a bank loan, and then she handed that created the paper. We give him this $450,000 of paper. We give him what's left of the $180,000 of cash. We create another note on a little other property that she had, did another trade, and we go get a bank loan for 2.1 million. Okay, so this guy's got like, $2.2 million in cash, a $450,000 note, another $160,000 note. He's just, he's sitting in high cotton. How's that? Would be my dad's expression. Anyhow, so and we closed that deal. So now the financial planner, we told him you better have $180,000. If you didn't, he'd go to jail. So we knew he would. In the meantime, guess what? He got to go put it, at very low risk things and get a tiny little increment of money for it as well. The time came, he brings $180,000, everything closes, this guy's happy, everything's good. The seller bought another campground with a note and all the cash. And it's pretty funny, stepping forward, I'm sure I get to this, but a few years later, about 2-3 years later, the guy calls me up and says, hey, I sent my check. Then it got sent back. They said, you don't owe us any money. I said, who do I send my check to? So you just wait. They'll let you know. Just keep the check. It's going to go to the next person. So that note was passed through 4 or 5 hands before it cashed out in 4 years. So this guy, the hardest thing for the borrower was knowing where to send the check. Okay, and I think he was able to figure that out, and all the money got done. Okay, so now pitfalls. Okay, it's definitely more difficult to place 1031 paper than cash. Okay, it's hard to place 1031 cash, believe it or not, in the time manner. We've all been through it. It seems real easy, right? You got this pile of cash. It's sometimes hard to get the right asset with cash.
It's hard for people to know what they want.
Yeah.
That's usually the hardest part, and then finding.
Yeah, so finding people who know what they want is what Demetrius contributed, absolutely. 45 days is not enough to identify. I'll say do not close on the first leg until you have done due diligence on the next leg. Remember the 18 months of the master lease and giving him really good terms without having the money down? That is to keep us safe in our identification. Okay? Due diligence must be done on the collateral as well as the replacement property. Okay, there's another little caveat that actually makes it a little safer. The guy taking the note for his KOA campground needs to look at the office building and the borrower and make sure that we're not just pulling some scam, and make sure this guy's for real. He got $180,000 down, he's gonna sign on it, and then we really have the collateral, and there's a title policy and a lender policy, and all this stuff, everything you'd always worry about, everything you know about real estate is still true, okay? You still have to do all of that stuff. And we usually have to wait for the taker of the paper to find their next leg, okay? Fortunately, this guy found his next leg with the campground, but he was wanting to stall too, where I had to, give a little tough, so we're gonna close. So, because he didn't write those clauses to delay it forever. So you want to write clauses where you can put it off, not forever, but to where you've got the time if you need to. But you need to a lot of times you have to go. So the first one with the house, you needed to find if the guy, that fourplex, if the guy with the $1 million shopping center would take the fourplex paper, okay? The guy with the $1 million shopping center had to know that the $2 million shopping center would take his paper, okay? Everyone there had to agree before we get it all closed. It's harder, okay? The people in here are licensed as brokers, and I think most people on Zoom, we do this for a living, okay? We get commissions. This is really hard, right? And I guess people had an issue. The one person who was hardest on is the guy brought the buyer. He had to wait 18 months to get his commission, okay? He was the one guy who made any charitable act throughout the thing. Now within years later, we did 2 of these deals. He still doesn't know what we did. Okay? But he's okay, he got paid. So I could have stopped with about an $18,000 fee, okay? Not that we all have set amounts of it. Somewhere in the $18,000 fee amount I could have stopped, okay? I needed to have another broker in Missouri help me on the deal, so I had to give a little bit up on that. But instead of about $18,000, I made $90,000 on this transaction, okay? I sold a $630,000 office building, and I sold a $3 million KOA campground. I didn't just sell an office building, I sold both. I got $90,000 in fees, okay? And it took a year and a half later. I tell you what, any of you want to trade your $90,000 fee 18 months from now for $18,000 today, I'm the buyer.
With a
Okay.
note.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'll give you cash for that. But but you see what I'm saying? I mean, 5 times as much money by waiting 18 months. If you're planning on being in business in 18 months, then go ahead and do the deal. If you're not, take the 18 grand and get the hell out of town, okay? Because we really fooled someone, you got to pay you money like that. So, anyhow, I just want you guys to know that it's not, we're public servants, we're serving the public. The whole goal is to get the best set of benefits for the clients. But by doing it right, we make a lot more money. Okay? That's just the reality. Okay, 1031 paper benefits. That's going to get summarized both. It increases the buyers and takers for the relinquished property in a 1031 exchange. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, a lot of people, the guy, Stuart's got an RV, he wants that house, okay? He's a taker for the house because we gave him a seller carried note. He's not a taker for the house on other ways. This gets more takers on the seller carried side, okay? Also, that RV park's a perfect example. How many here, if I gave it to you tomorrow, are excited about running an RV park? Not a whole lot of people. Everyone didn't jump up and say, I'm dying to run an RV park, okay? How many of you, if I gave you a first note by that RV park, how many of you can jump up right now and say, I'll take it? Yeah, everybody. Because it's a note secured by an RV park, okay? What do we just do? Our job is moving equity, okay? There's a really hard way to move the equity by moving the property. A really easy way to move the equity by moving the note, okay? The person who takes the note doesn't want the RV park. They hope they never have to own it. In fact, they'll only take the note if it is apparent and clear that they will never own that RV park, okay? And but it makes it more valuable. Okay, conserve its currency for multiple legs, okay? This thing, as we saw, can go leg after leg without everybody agreeing to take the RV park and then finding something in lieu. They agreed to take a note on it wasn't an RV park, but they take a note on something and get something in lieu of that, not in lieu of the property. It's harder, even though everyone's going to do an in lieu deal. No one's going to take it. They won't take it. They won't say they'll take it to trade as well as they will with a piece of paper or money. Okay, everybody here thinks about, oh, well, it's money, cash is king. If they're going to do a 1031, the cash has no value except its ability to go get the next property. Okay, so if they can get the next property, they don't need it. So conserve its currency for multiple legs. And this is what I have to back out because I'm sure people on Zoom and everyone else can hear in their head. All of this is so much easier with money. Okay, if the buyer for your property has enough money to buy it, and you end up with enough money to buy what you want with it, then don't mess with all of this, okay? That's easier, okay? If we can all do easy deals, we'll do nothing but easy deals. This is sometimes more beneficial, but if you can do it with cash, it's easier. There's just an aside there. Buyer usually doesn't need a new loan to close, okay? Who screws up our deals more than anybody?
Broker.
Besides the broker, besides you, Brian. The lenders is the right answer. We all supposed to have the right answer. Attorneys, no disrespect, sometimes attorneys screw things up, but it's usually the lenders that are the problem in a deal, right? I mean, that's why we go through all these hoops and do all this stuff. They're the weak link in real estate. They've always been the weak link. They give you an umbrella when the sun is shining and takes it away when it rains. So the notes here, rather than cash, the notes actually bear interest even when they're with the qualified intermediary. So the idea of keeping your money working, that your money didn't stop working, it didn't stop working because you got interest. Deals can close without waiting for a bank. No bank underwriting. I wrote that as a benefit. It can be a benefit. It can be a detriment. We discussed that too. It is what it is. It's no bank underwriting. So the guy with the $180,000 down on the $630,000 purchase, how much underwriting can we do? He's qualified. He's got $180,000 down on a $630,000. We hope he defaults, okay? It's anybody, that note's easy, okay? You put plenty of money down. You put a significant amount of money down, 30% down. Alrighty? So those are just some of the benefits. We can do these loans. And another thing with the no bank underwriting, the loan can say anything. can be interest only for the first year, it can be no payment for the first year, it can, all these other things. You can have imputed interest, there's certain restrictions on what you can do, but you can make it say anything, okay? Right to buy at a discount, no prepayment penalty, you know, all kinds of other things that you can put in there. Okay, now the next one, okay, the more problem, what about the existing debt? Okay, let me switch gears a little bit. Let's put all that stuff behind us and we can come back and visit it when we need to. Okay, we live in the real world, right? How often do you end up with $3.5 million of property and there's zero debt on it? Okay, yeah, that's never happened, right? I'm thinking maybe it's happened, but I don't know if it ever has. Okay, I'm gonna show you a little way, you know, it's almost a mnemonic to show you how, in a small version, how we deal with the debt. Okay, you can imagine each one of these, the debt has to go forward with you, with your equity, okay? Because you only own that portion of the property that you own, not the portion owned by others. The portion owned by others is often owned by the bank, right? I say owned, that's a little strong, but you know what I mean. Existing debt on each property must be paid off or removed. We must follow the 10-3 rules or risk taxation on boot. Everybody must go up in debt or across. It usually involves getting a new loan on the new property. The underlying debt can move with the 1031 paper being refinanced by the biggest property. Okay? In that example, as we go forward, if we get the $1 million loan on the $2 million property, we can probably extinguish the debt throughout the whole thing. Okay? You have to do them separately, each piece, to see how we do it, but that absolutely is how it can be done. The guy buying the biggest property signed up the debt. Okay? And again, we'll talk about the specifics. Let me give you an example that's mine can grasp in a short period of time. Here's another deal I did with the illustrious Ted Blank there on Zoom, one of our famous Zoomies. Did this just within the last year. Okay, so this is still legal even right now. No, that's humor, by the way. Whenever I say illegal, that was the joke I got all the time. These people, literally, I come to this meeting and people, the first few years they ask me, is this legal? I mean, what the hell are you saying to me? All right?
Have you seen me?
Yeah. So Bill Exner said at the first round table, any of you who remember that, we had 3 big round tables. There were like 45 of us, and Bill was like way over there, and I'm over here. People ask me that damn question, is this legal? Right? We go over to Bill and we're doing this. And so Bill has done this, people have done these for years. They usually do it because you end up with a little seller carry note stuck in the transaction. All the qualified intermediaries know what this is and how to do it. They just didn't call it 1031 paper, okay? It's avoidance of boot is what they probably would have called it, okay? So here's our little case study. I have 7 cabins on 4 acres in Logan Park, Colorado. They're worth, I was going to sell them, but hell, I'm just keeping them. Anyhow, they're worth $750, they'll be worth, they're more than that today. And they had a debt of $450,000. And the debt was to one of our private hard money guys who, part of my business is keeping these guys earning their 12%, okay? So I got a guy who the benefit sought was for him to be earning his good interest rate. I didn't want to keep doing that on that property because it didn't, made some money, but not enough. So I created a new note, and people say, how do you do that? Well, in Colorado, we have a statutory promissory note and deed of trust. Every state's going to be different. You probably need an attorney. But I literally got on my computer and I can write it up. Turns out I didn't have to write it up to start with. I have to just tell people, I'm going to create this note and I'm bring it to a marketing session. So I think I have it again in this marketing session because I can do it again. I've got a movable note. So I created a $600,000 first note, and remember Ted had those 11 houses in the duplex in Belleville. It used to be 17 houses, and it used to be, it took a while to move, and we're trying to find someone who's a taker for it. Well, Ted Blank loves paper. I gave him $600,000 of paper for his houses, and he said, great, I'll take it. I had to move my 450 debt. That guy said, oh God, Illinois. So he wouldn't move. Normally they'd move and it'd be easy. I found another lender though. I was a 75% loan to value. Just got a new loan on Belleville and replaced it. So now I have my $750,000 of cabins. I created a 6% interest only note for 5 years for $600,000. So instead of a $4,500 payment, I've got a $3,000 payment. The gross is $6,000 a month. I never have to do anything except let my managers turn the pages on the calendar, right? Because that's what's gonna happen. So I now have my 7 cabins, I got 600,000 debt on them, and I've got 11 houses in a duplex in Belleville, Illinois, that thank goodness are paying me real well. Sorry, Ted, they're doing real well. And so I've got 300,000 equity in the cabins, okay, with 450 debt. I've got 150 left in the cabins with 600 debt, and I got $600,000 of houses with $450,000 of debt, okay? So now if I can tie a rock to Belleville and just throw it in the ocean, I really did something for myself, right? Turns out it's making good enough money, it's in the book, I'll trade it, and I gave people 2 or 3 meetings to buy it at 600, now it's 650. It's gonna be 700 next time, just saying. So anyhow, so all I did was I split the 300,000 equity between the 2 properties, and I helped myself with debt service. Now I have a $12,000 coming in a month to pay $7,500 rather than $6,000 coming in to pay $4,500. Those numbers are better. So there is how you create paper and move debt. This is a micro of each of the legs in the 1031 paper, how we would do it. Okay? Because like I said, we're getting creation of wealth. This is a creation of wealth formula. I created debt and I bought real estate. 1031 paper, you create debt in a transaction and use it to buy real estate. Same thing. All right, now we're going to start the fun part. I only have a few more pages. Brainstorming, okay? This is where I want all of you to start thinking, and I'd really like it if the Zoom folks, separately have a discussion about this as well, going around as far as how this would work. Okay, let's just brainstorm how it works. So the note goes from the seller of the first property to the qualified intermediary to the seller of the second property. They can give it to their qualified intermediary. I've covered a lot of this already, probably. We can imagine that same note going through many hands even until it pays off. We discussed this a little bit. Interest is ordinary income and can be used to pay QI and other closing costs, taxable but accessible. Okay? The problem with the 1031 money is if you access it, you're going to have to pay taxes on it. So this is taxable income, but it's accessible and you're stuck paying the tax anyway. No way to avoid it. Okay, next one. Notes. So I have brought many to be created notes for this meeting. I've got a list. I didn't actually print it out like I should have, but I've got a list on my computer I can send you. But yeah, I've got a dozen or more of these notes at all times that we can go and buy with. So we find out what the property you have, what set of benefits. Either I'm going to be the principal or one of my clients is going to be the principal. We're going to go forward. We also have seller carried properties whose owners will do a 1031 paper deal. Questions, of course, is who else has notes or properties available for the process? Any of you bring notes to the meeting? Do you have any properties that
I just decided to create one.
Yeah, exactly. You can create one right now tonight and put it in the system. Does anyone have any properties where the seller's going to do a 1031? You should. I mean, come on.
Yes.
These were rhetorical questions, okay? Anyhow, assuming we have people who are going to do a 1031, whose client wants to do a 1031 and needs a taker, okay? So if you get there and you've got a property and we can't find a taker for it because, they want something, people think I'm not going to get it. Any one of you people, I'll use Asher as the victim because he doesn't know your real estate. Anyone could be the taker for that property, okay? And say, I got nothing, I want you 100% financing, okay? And somebody you may own that property, okay? By being willing to be a taker. Because the person's going to take that that paper, you're probably going to create 80% or 20% or something like that. Buy something nice with 80%, come crappy with the 20%, and you got yourself 100% finance. So anybody here whose benefit sought is ownership of real estate under any conditions, we can definitely find it. Are you going to have a positive cash flow on day one with 100% finance property? Probably not. You might. But what you really look at it is if you got negative cash flow, you're making an incremental down payment to get into real estate. Okay? You have to be creditworthy. You have to be able to do the work and all the rest of it. But heck, someone else like myself might say, no, you don't have a down payment. They're worried about the down payment. I got a piece of land that I don't want. Anyone here with land they don't want? We got some arms on that, right? How many of you would trade that for a second note on anything? Yes, same hands, okay? You can always buy a piece of land with a second note on anything you want to buy, okay? The problem is getting the seller to take that piece of land. You may have to buy the piece of land back from them, okay? But I can go say I want to buy $500,000 property, and Stephen's got $150,000 of New Mexico land, and he says, I'll be your partner as a lender and be a second note. We'll go use Stephen's $150,000 of land, either have a seller carry or I'll go get him a bank loan for the $350,000. And give them both, and if they say, well, we don't want the land, we really like the $350,000 on the land. Well, in New Mexico, they got things called real estate contracts, right? Steve and I we just buy that back on a real estate contract, right? Make some payments, and then guess what? His sign doesn't come down off the property. Steve can leave his sign on that property the whole time, and then we're gonna sell through it, because that's part of the thing. In fact, on our 1031 paper YouTube videos, there's a really hilarious one by Alex Ruggieri. And he's just so excited that his sign just keeps letting him stand on that lot. He's traded that thing 4 or 5 times. And it's the same thing. So the piece of land is real good because we can always, everyone in this room is much more capable of taking in and disposing of a piece of land than our clients in most cases. So use those things as vehicles. A deed to a piece of land is just another piece of paper. Okay? Any deed is, anyhow. So anyhow, so there's that question. Okay. Acknowledgement. Okay. I did not invent this formula. Okay. There is nothing new under the sun. I did not invent this. I was just intentionally doing it. I want to give thanks to all who have come before who have taught and inspired me. 3 specific others are Bob Steele, Ted Blank, and Alan Friedman. There are way too many to list. All of you know yourselves out there. Some of you are in this room. The Exchangers is a wonderful group where we really cooperate and help one another. It's changed my life, being a member of these groups. And my father's been gone for 22 years. We did this kind of stuff, these kind of crazy formulas. People here share with me like my father did, and it really helped me. That's why I'm up here talking in front of you, okay? I get all choked up, but it's the reality. Every one of you is going to be lifted up by the rest of us. We can change the world, okay? I would like to see all of you, now that you're experts with this process, to go out and to help you change the world. Because I don't think we all need to be thinking about money the same way and letting the banks be in charge of everything. I think we can do these kind of transactions over and over and over again. I know that corporate America does this all the time. Okay, you think McDonald's pays taxes when they sell things? They don't. Do you think they trade financial instruments back and forth? Absolutely they do. The big boys are doing this. They're not talking about it, okay? Just like this group. This I look at as a way to be an ambassador for what we do. We can show people a different way to do a transaction that they never thought of. How'd you find out about that? Well, there's these groups I go to, called Exchangers. And we got local ones, we got national, regional, and we all go and meet. And really wise people, like I'm just, look around like in Tucson. Got Stuart Watkins and Tom DeSaller in the room, okay? Alan used to be there, he's passed away, okay? You can't find that just in your realtor association, okay? You need a group, this kind of group. So that's the plug for that. Backstage Exchanges and the Society of Exchange Counselors have been meeting since before I was born, okay? My local trophy in the local chapter began before I was born, okay? The date on it's like 1963 or something. I was born in '66. NCE, I really value this group as much as any. This allows all licensees to come into this forum without having to be invited, okay? You just have to get to know about it. And then that helps grow. Forever it's been invitation only. It's been a secret, like I say, it's the best kept secret in real estate for all these decades, and it doesn't need to be. And I don't think anybody had malice or intent. I just think that that's been the result of, like I said, we don't need anyone else, except that we do need those other people because they're fellow human beings, okay? But we could do deals just amongst ourselves and never need anyone else on this island but us, okay? The idea of 1031 paper as a vehicle for exchange and change in our industry comes from the inspiration of all those exchangers who have gone before me. So that's why I'm doing this, why I spend the effort at pay Asher to put together videotapes. We have that 1031 paper channel. It's people have been good to me. I make really good money off every one of these meetings, okay? I can directly connect the number of days I go to national meetings to my income. that's more bragging. Sorry, Ted. Anyhow, so as an exercise, 1031 paper is a catalyst. Remember the $20 bill that didn't end up ever being used? It was a catalyst. We used to have at exchange meetings, the Xander board, we used to have 3 columns. We don't know how to use it anymore, okay? You had a haver, a taker, and a catalyst. Nobody remembers the catalyst anymore. There are a few people, those guys up there that do. 1031 paper is the same kind of catalyst that cash is. When we have a cash, cash boards and paper boards in the meeting, why do we do that? Catalysts, okay? We're not a marketing buy-sell MLS marketing meeting where you come in with something and say, I'm only going to take cash. If you are, next. But anyhow, enough pontificating. So anyhow, as an exercise to get ready for 3 days of marketing, let's see if we can put together some hypothetical multi-leg exchanges using real inventory. This is more sequential than cowboy auction or trader board format. You don't have the top one and all the ones. It's tick, 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 tick. It's in series instead of parallel. You start with one note as a taker for one property whose owner wants other property. There's no reason we can't leave this session without several transaction ideas, except if people are holding and don't have their inventory. We'll get in this in a second, but for the meeting, I'll just go on to the next one, and because it'll all wrap together. We're really rolling into the meeting. What time is it? Look at that timing, beautiful. Okay, ask yourself these questions for the meeting. Is there any inventory that you or your client might buy if financing were available? Okay? Do you have any 1031 inventory? Okay? Is there anything at the meeting you or your client would rather own than what they have or don't have today? Okay, is there something that they would rather have? Is there any taker at all for any property in the book with seller financing? Okay? If the answer is no, I'm just going to go home now. Okay? Try to put together a deal as a buyer, a seller, or a broker using 1031 paper when the other party won't take the property or carry the paper. So, don't accept someone who's going to reject your offer, okay? You can offer them something, they say, I don't want what you got. So what would you, if I got you something in lieu of what I'm giving you, would you do it? Oh yeah. Okay, how about if that's paper or cash? Oh, I'd do that. Okay, well, give me a little time to get that together. I'm going to sell your property, okay? And that's how you buy someone else's property by selling somebody else's. Okay, it seems kind of counterintuitive, but I hope I'm communicating it. Okay, and the last is just a little plug at the end. So we got a little 1031 paper channel on YouTube. Eventually, we have a 1031paper.com that's just getting started, but basically the idea is to create a marketplace, paper seeking property, property seeking paper. But the whole point of the 1031 paper YouTube channel is to introduce the world to exchanger culture. Most people don't know that we exist, okay? So there are many views with experienced exchangers, educational videos, entertaining videos, and then get the word out. And thank you all for your time. Thank you. And any questions? An Albert Goldberg question.
Oh, no.
In pieces, I have to repeat it for Zooms.
I've been doing this for 20 years, and I appreciate what you say about cooperation. I've been real estate for 40 years, since I was 21. But what do you do when a guy keeps bidding on your packages, and every time you call him, like this guy bid on all my packages last time. I called him a half dozen times, and as a broker, he's not cooperating or returning calls.
You're talking about people getting back to you on follow-up?
Yeah, it's like they bid on your package, and you call them.
Oh yeah, okay, so what Albert's question is, and this is one that we have trouble all the time. So somebody puts a number in for your package, and then you call him and he never answers. I don't know what to say, except if that's me, I apologize. But you gotta just keep bugging the hell out of them, and if they don't, that's another thing. We try to give everybody on the level field. If somebody's only been in the meeting one time and then they don't answer your call, maybe they're just not into it and they're just not going to do this kind of a complicated deal. If it's someone who's been coming a lot of times, bug them and figure out why, figure out if it was just the idea, they forgot what the idea was, or the idea, is no longer viable because they sold the property or something like that. But you're right, our problem is follow-up, and I appreciate you putting that out, Albert, is when someone makes the offer, and you're gonna have to do work, and it's gonna take 18 months, and as Bob Steele always says to me, you know, it's real easy to reach over there and take that low-hanging fruit. It's sometimes hard to get the people to focus on it. Remember, 90,000 versus 18,000, okay? That's, you know, trying to keep people focused on it. Work harder, do better for your client, and you get paid more money. So, there's your big pitch. Yes, question?
So this is, I think everyone in the room kind of understands this is more for the video, but can you go over what in lieu of means?
Okay, so in lieu of is just French for in the place of. Lieu, L-I-E-U, is the French word for place. So you're gonna offer me, you know, a bushel of bananas, okay? And I want the gross of apples, or, you know, dozens of apples. I'm gonna say, I'll accept your bananas, subject to being able to get my apples in lieu of your bananas, because I'm gonna take your bananas over to the guy who sells apples and see if he'll give me apples for your bananas. That's what it is. And so with the paper, someone gives you paper, you don't want paper, you want property, you want cash, you say, I'll accept the paper so long as I can find something. Okay, now you got your property and you got this paper. As we talked about, what's easier to find someone to take it for? Paper. So now you've got two things to go out and market, okay? And so the person who makes you the seller carry offer on your property is giving you a gift. They're giving you paper to take to the marketplace, okay? There's the in lieu. Thank you, Asher. Mm-hmm. Asher does the interview, so he knows what things I forget to tell people. All righty, yes, Russell.
I'd like to comment on, you said we stumped you. I don't think we stumped you because you pointed us to our CPA, so we technically.
There you go, yeah, yes, point to the right. I can never be stumped if I always say talk to your attorney or your CPA.
Yeah.
Or, as Mr. Figueroa and all attorneys tell me, I just answer, oh, that depends.
Also, I don't think anything is complicated. Some things are more sophisticated than others and require more explanation.
That's a great thing. He said,
complex
it's not
answer.
complicated. Some things are more sophisticated than others and require more explanation. Yeah, I love you. I'm more sophisticated than others and I require more explanation. I think those two might be pulling on the other end of the same rope. Anyhow, I really appreciate it, everybody, and your time, and you enjoy your
Any other
lunch.
questions?
Any other questions?
Anyone else?
Zoomies?
Blake?
I have one, Blake.
Okay, sure.
John Spinola, and you mentioned that the interest is ordinary income. I understand that, and can be used to pay closing costs, etc. Taxable but accessible. You can't access that until the deal closes, right?
You can't access it until the deal closes, right? It has to be, you can't access it until it has been given to the qualified intermediary. You're absolutely right. So during the 45 days, the 180 days is when you'll be getting that interest. But you're right, until you close on the first leg, that note hasn't initiated and originated, and so the interest just starts as soon as that first property is put into the exchange. You're right. So for instance, on the note, on the example that I used, where it took 18 months to close, that interest didn't start until we closed that after 18 months, and then that interest started piling up as it got handed from intermediary to intermediary. Thanks for pointing that out though, John, because it is true that it doesn't, until you close, if we're waiting to close, that cash doesn't start. But while you're doing all the identifications, you'll be getting the interest. Is that clear, John?
Got it?
Yeah, see, John already knew the answer. I appreciate you, John. Thanks.
All right, any more questions? Because if there's no more questions, we're going to take a break till 1:30, where Dave Sanchez is going to come back for education on syndications.
Yes.
And I just want to say, everyone give Blake a great hand. He did a great job.
I'm applauding myself. And there you go, and here's my contact info. All of you have my cell phone also in the notebook. I have a lot of tenants. I don't put my cell phone anywhere where it can show up electronically. So look in your notebook and call me on the cell phone if you need me. There's my email. I also always ask people to look at the 1031 paper channel on YouTube. So I'm creating this YouTube channel. We also created a 1031paper.com. We're creating a marketplace for paper-seeking property and property-seeking paper, where we eventually have these same kind of meetings doing it. Now, the reason to do this isn't just for my ego to say, hey, we want to have this other special thing. I think this is a vehicle to help teach the rest of the world what we do, okay? And this is a way to get, every investor in America should know that they should have a broker in one of these meetings, okay? Most people don't know. We've been keeping this a secret for way too long. Most of the people have passed on, okay, the experts. We do have a very wonderful, unique situation. We can sit and do business with just ourselves forever and never need anybody else, and never need to do another transaction with another human being outside of the people in this room, and we would make a fortune for the rest of our lives without any problem. That's not the point here. The point is, let's start expanding it, because it's, you know, we've had attrition because of that. This, I think, is a way to try and get the mainstream world into the room and realize it, to where it will be a question of, you know, how quick we have to shut it off, how many people can come, so.